he's already out. He's in the yeah, I think I haven't. I don't know where Robin's at these days. I didn't see her name.
Robin is in Texas.
Okay.
For better or worse. I was still waiting. I was like, nice to be in Texas. She said it's never nice to be in Texas. I was like, okay.
I think it's extra different for her.
Texas for her is probably harder than
Are you
two of them were like it turns out this is a lesson. I have like
that sounds familiar. Ambition is a double-edged sword.
and as you know, I'm good. I'm pretty good about I'm not great. Those are actually.
I understand. That's exactly. That's been a professional goal line. It's very hard to see here. I'll let you know.
Take you out for beers and you can tell me about how to do it.
I think it's not impossible when you're somebody who is interested and passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
It just comes with the territory. Yeah, of course you are. It's obvious, yes. Yeah, I mean, there aren't that many people who would do this with as much and as bigger as you do. Yeah. I think she's been a good head of. We've had.
Yeah. Okay, good. I saw that. You're gonna. Those are on. And they'll. Do I need to read questions?
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Is the mic not on? I haven't been in the classroom in a while, so no one's paying attention to me. Hi, everyone. Let's get the evening started, afternoon started. Thank you for being here. I'm delighted that we're, again, having this amazing event. We are pleased, as ever, always, to showcase what we're doing with our Research Advancement Academy. Is there I hear my voice twice here. The Research Advancement Academy, one program that we're really super proud of and excited of. This is our third cohort that gets to who get to present their work so that we can showcase what this academy can do. We have 19 fellows. 10 of them are funded through their biohealth fellows, funded through a second generous gift from the Wayne and Gladys Valley Foundation, which really is the way we started this work to begin with, to have that seed funding, and then we combined resources and did more, and with our foundation rep is sitting back there, Molly, and we've just really showcased what this academy is about across the state anyway. We're going to San Francisco next fall to really show what we can do with this program. And the way your 3-minute presentations, how as difficult as they are, that's how we reach audiences, right? And I was telling someone more and more it becomes important to be able to tell a story in 3 minutes rather than showing charts and graphs that we're so proud of. In addition to this program, as you know, we have a transdisciplinary research seed fund program. We've funded 29 faculty teams to advance their work and scale up, and we have a new set that we're evaluating right now, and they'll be announced soon. These types of programs is really kind of the only way we can do this is by coming together as the central units like ours, the Division of Research and Innovation, the Provost's Office, the colleges, and anyone else who's willing to jump in and really support this amazing work that you're all doing so that you can scale up your work, really go out of your, get out of your boxes in a way, right? We all grow up in disciplines and really make that jump to a larger and more different type of work. So I did want to thank Provost Fazer for, while he was here, for really partnering strongly with me, collaboratively thinking about how to fund this program. I do want to thank the colleges, the deans, who really have to make some tough decisions at the expense of other things to support your work. And also, you know, our contribution and the private foundations like the Valley Foundation, and our President Murthy, for inspiring us to do bigger and better things, you know, push the boundaries as much as we can. And you will hear more about the Academy from Julie Rizian, who directs this work, and she's our Director for Transdisciplinary Research in a little bit. So welcome again. We do have a reception after. I know this is a long commitment, but I hope you stay, and some more people I think are going to come join us during the reception. But for now, I wanted to hand over the podium to President Murthy. Again, she has been really the driver for us to do these types of activities, and it takes a lot, but it also takes little, right, to support and show that we really want to do this type of work, and she has been behind that work. It's really getting us to become, take our role and position as an R1 university. President Murthy?
Thank you, Rem. It's wonderful to see you all here. I got to tell you, this is probably my most favorite event because it's such a respite from, I don't know, signing forms or whatever it is I do all day to actually hear about the work that our faculty are doing. It's always exciting. It's always wonderful to see all of the new ideas that are bubbling up. And as Irem said, research, we're an R1 university, and it really behooves us to invest in research and to pay attention to the work that we do and to celebrate the work that we do. And today is part competition, part celebration, and I'm really, really here for it. One of the big things, one of the big pieces of our strategic plan is that we're going to be a place which makes big discoveries that drive big solutions. And that's important. The solution-focused aspect of our research is really important. And so you can't, I think, be solution-focused simply by sitting in an office and thinking deep thoughts, though thinking deep thoughts is important. We have to reach out and make connections with our colleagues and with community members, not least because we are not only an R1, but we're also a land-grant institution. So it's a part of our mission, really, to make impact on the society in which we live. And of course, all real problems are very complex and therefore are naturally transdisciplinary. And so making those connections is incredibly important. And we do that already. I mean, I was so amazed when I first came to OSU to see the kinds of things that people did. I mean, we have engineers studying oceans. We got farmers and ranchers doing data science. We've got pracs. We've got artists creating wonderful connections between the arts and technology. And so we do have naturally amongst us this idea that single discipline work is great, but transdisciplinary is absolutely necessary to make real world impact. And so that's why we're actually investing so much in this area. So today, I believe, this is the third cohort of our Research Advancement Academy. What a lovely concept and how wonderfully it's supported by philanthropy. And I'm particularly pleased that we're focusing on early and mid-career faculty. So the Academy emphasizes solution-oriented research, enterprise leadership, and intellectual humility, and it's designed to uncover implicit truths, address barriers to success, and foster partnerships and teamwork. Now, over the fall and winter terms, fellows in the Academy completed a series of workshops, I'm told, exploring evidence, mindsets, tools, and practices. And as a part of the program, faculty can apply for seed funds for research from the Office of Research Advancement. And then today, as a part of the application process, we are going to hear from future faculty leaders who've developed research-based solutions based on transdisciplinary practices. So our fellows will then talk about their motivation to collaborate with partners in academia and beyond to address our society's most challenging problems. And so they will talk about how they intend to leverage seed funding to build transdisciplinary teams and to attract resources that are needed to advance and grow their research. So these today are about as important a conversation as any of us can have, because the current federal landscape, first of all, is challenging, but it does put the focus on us to have real-world impact with the work that we do. And so so this is really important. So our vision, again, as you know, is an ambitious one, and the focus is on big things that matter to Oregon and the world. And in our strategic plan, we've really identified 4 big areas: climate and related solutions, clean energy and related solutions, AI and robotics, integrated health, and biotechnology. And so this is these are things that we already do really well, but we want to do even more of them and to do them better. They're centrally connected to who we are and our role in Oregon. And so really what I'm looking for is for all of us to roll up our sleeves, transcend boundaries, make connections, make collaborations, and make this whole effort a huge success. So thank you so much. I'm really going to have fun this afternoon asking questions rather than answering them. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Hi, everybody. I am Julie Rizian, Director of Transdisciplinary Research. I want to say thank you, President Murthy and Irem, for being here today and supporting this work. I've had a lot of jobs at OSU, and working with this program and these fellows is really my favorite part. So we are here to celebrate. We're also here to understand and to learn, and a little bit to judge. There's some people over here that have that responsibility. I am very happy to be here, though. This program, Research Advancement Academy, is a flagship program of the Office for Research Advancement within the Division of Research and Innovation. It's hard to say all of that without all the acronyms. There's normally 4 or 5 acronyms I get to rely on. If the folks from the Office for Research Advancement could raise their hands, Anthony Coppers, Leah Gorman, Pooja Agarwal, David Barber, Aaron's over here, Gretchen is over here. I just wanted to introduce us as an office. We are your strategic partners for facilitating not only transdisciplinary research, but also supporting submissions for extra large, ambitious, complex proposals. We've got some other things as we build as a program as well, but we are folks you can reach out to if you're looking to do something rather ambitious and aren't sure exactly where to start. Again, the early and mid-career faculty are welcomed into the Research Academy. Applications are currently open for any faculty who are interested in participating next year. That information is readily available on the DRI website. And it is about scaling up folks that already have pretty successful research portfolios. I would say pretty typical successful researchers, faculty members who want to catapult into this transdisciplinary, more complex space. It is about elevating the impact of your work by building in the partners who can put your research to work immediately into your process of conceptualizing and conducting your research. The Academy does embody, you mentioned, intellectual humility and research enterprise, certainly leadership, and also exposing implicit truths and systemic barriers to success, both administrative, cultural, relational barriers, and moving past those barriers as well. And then building the types of enduring relationships that are built on a foundation of reciprocity. The fellows here today did compete for their spots. The folks on the panels today were part of that competition. They have worked together all year in a cohort. We meet Friday afternoons. It is a tough time to bring a lot of new energy to the table, and they manage to do it every time. Sometimes we have a hard time leaving before 5 o'clock, actually, even though we try. Those who are successful with their pitch today and the written narrative proposal for seed funds that they have already submitted will have access to up to $50,000. And as Irem had mentioned, the Wayne and Gladys Valley Foundation are supporting about half of the fellows. The other half are supported through a partnership between the Division of Research and Innovation, the Provost Office, and the colleges, who put up 50% of the resources for the support. We are here to celebrate, and I want to celebrate primarily the fellows, but also all the people who make this happen. Some of them have already been mentioned, but in particular, the Associate Deans for Research in every single college. Their partnership and vision and support for faculty has been unwavering in this. They are advisors. They push us to do more, to work harder, and it's been great. And by extension, department chairs, school heads, and deans who mobilize some of the resources to make this possible, and then directly support the faculty to invest their energy and to fully commit to the program. We have advisors for the Research Advancement Academy, including inaugural advisors Jeff Hollinger and Michael Nelson, and current advisors Phil Moat, Elizabeth Ocampo, Jake Hamblin, Heidi Shellman, and Marina Denny. And for the Valley Biohealth Program, we also have advisors Joe Beckman, Robin Tangway, Emily Ho, Matt Johnston, and Tom Sharpton. We really couldn't do this without this. They help us select the Academy members. They help us look at who's ready to catapult, and then they provide critical feedback and support as those folks start their seed funding year to implement their programs. Key contributors to the Academy this year are Leanne Giordano from Extension and Engagement, Rob Stone from Impact Studio College of Engineering, Karina Tipton-Buzart from OID, and Leah Gorman from our own Office for Research Advancement. Their expertise has really been critical to the development of the program and its continued success. And then finally, the ORI team, who I announced at the beginning, and by extension, Brian McLean, who's timing us today. We're going to get into the logistics here in a minute, for being a great group of people to work with and put on events like this. But these events are just the celebrations around all the hard work that we're regularly doing. And so in particular, Pooja Agarwal is the coordinator for transdisciplinary research. She is making so much function in the background, and I appreciate her every day. Thank you, Pooja. And Gretchen Cuevas is the glue that keeps our entire group together and functioning, and is responsible for the lovely reception that you'll have later. Okay, finally, thank you to the fellows. You show up with an open mind. Your investment in the program and your dedication and passion for making sure your science actually matters for solutions is nothing less than inspiring, and it is my pleasure to start to introduce you now. So for the audience, this is how this is going to work, or even ahead of time. We are going to bring fellows up. There are 19 of them, so we're going to bring fellows up in groups of 3 or 4. They're going to line up. They're going to speak one at a time. At the end of a group of 3 or 4, we'll have a few minutes for questions, and the next group will line up, and we'll go like that until we're done. If there's additional time at the end, we may have time for a few more questions. Pooja is in the back. She's got microphones for you. We are live streaming, so please don't rely on teacher voice. We need you to use the microphones. And I try every day not to use both at the same time, which is hard for me sometimes. In the questions, please focus on the science and the work and the partnerships that the fellows are presenting. This is a very dynamic and difficult time with funding. We are looking at the long term. We are looking at these fellows investing now in growing their research enterprise over their next decade, and this is not the time to necessarily have them explore the challenges with federal transition and funding and those things now. If you do want to talk about those things, there's lots of venues to do that. And certainly during the reception, there's plenty of people here who can talk to you about that. Okay, with that, I would like to invite Group A, you know who you are. I sure hope you know who you are, to come up here. All right, and I am going to go ahead and pass it over. If you need to use this microphone, you just need to turn it on and then turn it off when you're done. All right, Vinaya.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benata Jodar, and I'm an associate professor in the School of Chemical, Biological, and Environmental Engineering. Today, I want to draw your attention to the global impact and health burden that is impacted by cardiovascular disease. So this is the latest of data that's up there by the American Heart Association, and it's not a surprise that heart disease has remained as a #1 killer for the entire century. And this status has remained unchanged even after the COVID-19 pandemic ended. So, in summary, heart disease leading to heart failure is the biggest killer around us as we speak. In fact, every day someone, whether we know them personally or not, is dying from organ and tissue failure. While many of us sign up to be organ donors when we get our driver's licenses, the number of viable organs that are available for transplantation still falls far short of the demand. So this discrepancy is very critical, and it highlights a gap in modern medicine, one that we're trying to work and solve very efficiently using novel technologies such as tissue engineering, the schematic that you see up there. My research lab specializes in tissue engineering with a focus on leveraging advanced 3D bioprinting to generate functional organs and tissues. We have invested a decade in pioneering this technology behind building cardiac organoids or miniature heart tissues. In fact, some of these engineered heart tissues have even been sent to the International Space Station to study the effects of microgravity and radiation on the human heart. At this mid-career stage of my journey, I'm increasingly motivated by bigger questions and a broader vision for this work. How can we transform these lab-based innovations into clinical solutions? How do we ensure ethical, scalable, and an equitable access to engineered tissues and organs? And most importantly, how can we harness inter- and transdisciplinary collaborations to tackle the global burden of organ failure and tissue deficiency? Collaborations across OSU will drive our mission to improve health and equity through biomedical innovation. Building on our existing work, we're integrating newer tools like micro-CT for non-destructively evaluating the tissues that we engineer in the lab. We're also embedding biosensors to monitor tissue responses. We're applying advanced cryopreservation to enhance tissue shelf life and eventually be applicable clinically. In partnership with STEM educators, we're turning this research into workforce development. Together, we are laying the groundwork for the next generation of personalized, implantable organ and tissue systems with the overarching goal of positioning OSU as a national leader in regenerative medicine. Looking ahead, over a 5 to 10 year horizon, this aligns perfectly with OSU's prosperity widely shared strategic goal, while advancing solutions to some of the most pressing medical and societal challenges of our time.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Ben Diel, College of Science. So about 5 years ago, in February of 2020, the first COVID cases were reported in U.S. cities. And I remember hearing the news, as I'm sure many of you do as well, and I remember stepping away from my family into the garage. It was a terrible moment. I knew, like a lot of scientists knew, that we had stepped across a threshold and we were committed to millions of deaths. At this point in history, humanity does not possess a technology that can reverse that kind of epidemic momentum once it takes hold in cities. Cities are these amazing networks that bring people together, powering economies and innovation, but they've been unintentionally optimized to amplify contagion. And so in 2020, our cities couldn't keep us safe. But what if they could? So I'm leading a team that believes that cities of the future will attenuate rather than amplifying epidemics. They'll sense pathogens quickly, they'll forecast outbreaks accurately, and they'll promote subtle changes in human mobility that reduce transmission, but in ways that are fair and sustainable. We've made a lot of progress on this already over the last 5 years with a cross-university team. With College of Engineering, we've built new types of sensors. With College of Science, new math for sampling and forecasting. And with College of Health and Division of Extension and Engagement, we've started pilots at scale co-developed with cities across the state. But one of the most interesting and difficult challenges lies ahead, and that's what I want to pitch to you today. So the math is really clear that we can change how we move through cities during outbreaks to reduce transmission while keeping daily life intact. The challenge is to find the precise parameters that do this in the complex networks of real cities. And so to do this, we're going to build digital twins of cities and in collaboration with NVIDIA, leverage emerging techniques in machine learning. The result is going to be a new type of human-system interaction that sometimes incentivizes you to make minor changes to your movement, like when you go to the grocery store, and shows you a personalized view into the digital twin of your city and your role in it. So one thing that's become clear with AI over the past few years is that networks of agents can show intelligence. That means that cities can show intelligence. And so our long-term goal is not just to revolutionize how cities respond to infectious disease, is to promote the emergence of cities as intelligent systems that care for all of their inhabitants and ultimately save lives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Pitchford. Is this one not on? Thank you. Hi, I'm Andy Pitchford from the kinesiology program. I hope that we can all agree that health is important for everyone, including people with disabilities. The problem is people with disabilities experience a myriad of health disparities. 14 years lower life expectancy, higher risk of chronic disease, and less access to adequate health care. These health disparities are not just due to the disability alone, but to the system of inequalities that are present, and that includes health assessment. The way that we measure health was not designed for people with disabilities or by them. Health assessments are often rigid, they're standardized, they're not validated in a lot of populations, and most importantly, they don't reflect the personal interests of individuals. My interest is in bringing forward person-centric health outcomes to advance health equity for people with disabilities. So, I imagine a world in which health research is not done for people with disabilities, but with them, where health outcomes aren't just statistically significant, but are personally meaningful, and where the disabilities, a civil rights phrase, "nothing about us without us," is not just a slogan, but is the norm. It is the standard of how we do our research. My goal is to work to promote health equity of people with disabilities through developing health assessments based on these person-centric outcomes. This process includes directly including people with disabilities in the research process, not just as a topic or as a subject, but as an equal partner to co-develop solutions. In my research career, I've worked on a variety of assessments for people all with disabilities in physical activity, in motor skills, and in fitness. But health equity can be so much bigger and broader. Oregon State has the infrastructure to become a leader in this space. We have many faculty that are interested in disability, spanning kinesiology, psychology, philosophy, public health, business, and education. I am proposing to build a working group that will bring together these disability scholars to collaborate with external partners in panels of people with disabilities from the community to solve these problems. In the next year, our working group is going to partner with Special Olympics International to co-develop a new assessment of self-reported health. We're going to work directly with community members with intellectual disabilities to co-develop the assessment, the validation research, and ultimately the dissemination of those materials, and making sure that all aspects of research are informed by and accessible to people with disabilities. This will serve as a foundation to build toward new partners, new panels of community members, and ultimately toward building a funded Center for Disability Health Equity at Oregon State. Our ultimate goal is that together we can begin to address health disparities and create a future where everyone's health story is seen, heard, and valued. Thank you.
All right, we have a few minutes for questions. Okay, Tom and then Jackie.
All three of you did a great job with your pitches. Thanks for sharing your innovative ideas. My question's for Ben. Could you elaborate a little bit upon the concept of a digital city and what that entails? What does that look like, and how does it actually manifest in terms of your ability to make actionable inferences from it?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to try to start least nerdy, and then we'll go right down until how long? Yeah. All right. So generally speaking, a digital twin is like a model with a lot of parameters that is in close intersection with some aspect of reality, like it's a digital twin of a car or a digital twin of some sort of system in the real world. And so we're taking in data in a sort of a constant fashion and making predictions. So that's the general concept. For a digital twin of a city, we're focused on things like the location, characteristics, square footage of structures, travel patterns to those structures, the demography of people in the city. So one of the most important elements of a digital twin of a city for us is a synthetic population that has the same statistical characteristics that we know from the US Census. So there's fake people for all the real people in the city, someone living in your house, not you, but with statistically the same characteristics. And then my final, most nerdy comment is it's a bipartite graph connecting individuals to locations with time-varying edges. And that puts us in a place to do stuff with dynamical systems, which is, so.
Sounds like you two have more to talk about later. Next question from President Murthy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you speak to the transdisciplinary or cross-cutting nature of your work?
So all this time, I'm traditionally trained as a biomaterial scientist, and I've received a little bit of training with stem cells. And combining those two, we can make tissues. But when we think about scalability, we have to think about it as an engineering process. So we really cannot rip apart these constructs, so we have to think about non-destructively evaluating them, just as they would do in engineering batch processing. So, what kind of X-ray, non-destructive X-ray imaging can we do? How can we print these without compromising their functionality from one tissue layer to the other? All of those, doing some nano indentation measurements. So it's a lot of core engineering, and once the scalability is achieved, moving into the clinical arena, that's also where the transdisciplinary part will be applicable, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, one more question.
Just one more? Okay. I did have a question for Benata. What's your connection to working relationship with OHSU in determining the functionality of an organ? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So I gave a talk at OBS, which is Oregon Bioengineering Symposium, last fall, and that pitched me to the Oregon bioengineering community. I've been talking to clinicians there and just the bioengineering faculty who are more clinical research oriented. And we're talking about how they can also help. But the more direct connection would be utilization of their biofabrication core that they have. So at this time, I'm an adjunct faculty member of their core, and we have access. We can just go down and use their facilities. But my long-term vision is to emulate a similar facility here at OSU.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, the next fellow is Matt Bozegart, who from the College of Health, who is at OHSU right now welcoming his newest family member. So we thought that was a good reason to have him on video. There you go.
Imagine a loved one is having a normal day when suddenly they suffer an unexpected seizure. At the hospital, the devastating news is delivered. It's a brain tumor. And one of the many cancers we still struggle to understand. We don't know the cause of brain cancer. This happened to one of my family members. This is my cousin, diagnosed when he was 25 years old. Now, imagine being able to more accurately determine which factors and when in the life course they contributed to such a diagnosis, or even better, imagine preventing such cancers altogether. I'm Matt Bozegart. As an epidemiologist and a cancer researcher, I'm driven by the question, how can we prevent cancer? Despite early optimism from the Human Genome Project, genetics alone can't answer this question. Up to 90% of cancers are influenced or caused by environmental factors. Air pollution, housing conditions, everyday hazards, these are all understudied. But why? They're understudied because they're hard to study. How can you study environmental causes of cancer? Again, main causes of cancer, if you don't have much, if any, information on the exposome or the totality of exposures over an individual's lifetime that contributes to disease incidents like cancer. My research highlights the importance of linking detailed historical and environmental data to residential address histories of individuals. Collaborations with academic experts have revealed significant links between residential radon exposure and childhood leukemia in the US, findings that receive national attention. Ongoing research with the Women's Health Initiative, a large national cohort in the US, also indicates compelling associations between radon and brain cancers. And a study in Massachusetts is finding that radon is linked to several of up to 20 different types of major cancers. So I believe we are on the cusp of transformative understanding of cancer etiology and its subsequent prevention. But sufficient translational models to really move this needle are currently scarce. So through cancer and community-oriented resilience through the Exposome, or CanCore, we will launch this pioneering center to address environmental cancer risks over the life course. Our first-year pilot in Oregon will focus on radon exposure. This is the largest source of environmental radiation for the general population. Within 3 years, we'll expand to include other environmental carcinogens in a comprehensive exposomic framework. Within 6 years, we intend to scale and translate this approach nationwide. CanCore can move the needle on cancer prevention because it integrates researchers, cancer survivors, advocates, public health officials, diverse and precise data streams, and cutting-edge methods in a new holistic cancer prevention center. Together, we can build a healthier, informed, and cancer-resilient Oregon, setting an example for the nation. Let's start today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Miriam Kotan. I'm excited to be here today to talk about my RAA project. It features using seaweed to make bioactive peptides and affordable foods to promote food security and human health. So showing on this figure, you can see coming out from the seaweed are those helical structures, and those are the peptides that are promoting health in our cells, and also they are able to kill bacteria and pathogens on the exterior. So over the past 20 years, I have done a lot of work as a biophysicist to study how bioactive peptides like that work. However, before, I grew up in France on a farm where I got to learn about traditional knowledge that food can be a medicine. During that time, I was also exposed to the impacts of food insecurity. So I have the opportunity through this transdisciplinary project with the RAA to bridge together the passion that I have for studying the molecules of life together with the respect that I have for ancestral knowledge regarding food. So what is a better source of food to do this than seaweed, right? Especially at OSU. Seaweed is a superfood. It is sustainable, it is affordable, and it also has a lot of health benefits. So I feel that leveraging it with my team, as we propose to do it, brings together all dimensions of OSU's mission: land, sea, space, and sun. And it also aligns with goals that are in the Prosperity Widely Shared Plan. However, to get there, we do have challenges to overcome. Inconsistent nutritional profiles of the seaweed when we grow it. And then we also need protocols to extract the nutrients in a way that is green. And we need protocols to improve the way that we can make products that are affordable out of it. So this is exactly what my team is tackling. I am at OSU Cascades, and with a team over there, we are already growing seaweed on land using a controlled chamber to make the profile of the seaweed more reliable in terms of chemical content. So with the RAA seed funding, we'll have the opportunity to grow our team from 3 to 7 faculty across Cascades, Corvallis, and Portland. We will represent 4 colleges: agricultural sciences, business, engineering, and science, as well as the Food Innovation Center in Portland. Together, we will do the green extraction methods to get the nutrients out of the seaweed, and we will formulate affordable food products. To scale our impact, we will engage with commercial seaweed growers in the state of Oregon. We will partner with the OSU Extension Service on food security and safety, as well as the community college that exists in Bend, to promote food security and workforce training in underserved populations. Long term, we hope that we can create a center that unifies all of our transdisciplinary work and is about creating a value chain that promotes food security and human health in the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Thatcher from the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, and boom. From 1953 until 2003, OSU faculty, staff, students, and outside collaborators produced 9 editions of the Atlas of the Pacific Northwest. It was often a bestseller for the press and offered an accessible, beautiful, and informative explanation of what constitutes our region. From coastal fog trivia to technical soil analysis to cultural histories of those who have long lived here, each edition helped to create and define the PNW, and it served as a staple in both classrooms and legislative offices across the region. It was a collaborative, innately transdisciplinary work, the publication of which marked OSU as a premier land-grant institution and cartographic powerhouse in the region. Unfortunately, like many long-running projects, capacity wore down over time, and 2003 marked the final publication of a physical edition. A digital edition was put out in 2019 with plans for a physical to follow, but I think we all know what happened the next year. But the present moment offers a unique opportunity, and I'd argue imperative, for OSU to once more offer this atlas. In a time of political and economic uncertainty, when divisive ideas fracture our communities, and when the very value of institutions of higher ed is being called aggressively into question, it can offer new understandings of our region, imagine hopeful, scientifically grounded potential futures, and demonstrate to a wide public audience the values intrinsic to and of higher education. I can't and I shouldn't do this alone. A new atlas necessitates the inclusion of diverse voices from across the ideological spectrum, with expertise in a range of industries and environments, and representative of the cultures and identities that make up our region. I've begun building this team, reaching out to organizations like OSU Press, the Oregon Black Pioneers, Sea Grant, Dogami, the Institute for National Resources, and so forth. Together, these and so many others will co-produce the contents of a new atlas and bring to life not only where and who we are, but also how we got here and what we might become next. I am asking for the support to build this together, the time, money, and space necessary to find the voices needed and bring them to the table, to build and secure a team and the ongoing funding needed not to produce one more volume, but a number of volumes spanning out into the future. I am asking for the support necessary to forge ongoing cartographic collaborations coordinated through Oregon State University, which support the continued prosperity, knowledge, and hopes of the Pacific Northwest. Thank you. Oh, and I brought these if you want to see them.
A student recently emailed me that they were nervous about giving their manager some difficult feedback. It's a conversation that's never easy. But then they said when they remembered the tactics that we'd practiced in negotiation class, their nerves went away and they were able to manage that conversation well. Another student said, I didn't fully realize how important and common negotiations were. Negotiation is a basic life skill. But here at OSU, fewer than 1% of our own student body has the opportunity to learn that important basic life skill. And that's a problem, because if you think about how much of our days are spent coordinating with other people, each one of those coordination points is a negotiation that we use to organize, sure, job contracts and things like that, but also major life decisions and even who does the dishes. But it's an area in which we have a lot of room to grow before we can truly say that prosperity is widely shared in the world of negotiation, especially given changes like AI and other things that make that world more complex. My name is Laura Reese, and I'm an associate professor at the College of Business in organizational behavior, and I've spent the last 15 years researching, teaching, writing cases, producing podcasts, running workshops, and leading organizations and societies professionally that are dedicated to negotiation and conflict management research. So you can call me biased, and that I live and breathe this stuff, and I really think it's exciting. But I'm not the only one. The team I've pulled together includes an interim dean in communication at Temple University, a faculty librarian here at OSU. Did you know that our library reaches 1/6 of the student body each week? And a professor of engineering at Queen's University in Canada. And I've partnered with all of these people on various projects. But together we can do so much more to create research that's novel and more easily translated to everyday life. So what's our dream? We want to create a hub for everyday negotiation for everyday people. We want to work with the existing centers at Harvard, Northwestern, and Columbia, but we would be unique in our focus on everyday people and everyday negotiation, given their narrower focus on instructors like me and executive education. Eventually, our ultimate goal is to remove gateways and open novel pathways for diverse audiences to learn those important everyday negotiation skills. And we want to base this on research in 3 key pillars: basic skill foundation, so that people can feel comfortable negotiating things both large and small; future-proofing negotiation skills, especially as AI increasingly becomes relevant, not just in large-scale vendor contracts as it has been, but in everyday life situations; and creating context-specific frameworks, recognizing that what engineers may face, for example, is not what you or I may face. And together, building this novel research targeted at everyday negotiation skills for everyday people, we really believe that we can help prosperity be widely shared, not just within OSU, but far beyond it. Thank you.
All right, we have a few minutes for questions. Martin, microphone's coming your way, Martin.
So this is a recency effect question for you. Having taken a class in negotiation with James Sabinius, I can attest, and for others this is like big picture negotiation, I can attest that what you learn in an academic setting in this kind of realm doesn't at all translate into everyday life skills. So my question to you is, what are the kinds of foundations? Is it more psychology or is it negotiation theory? What are you bringing together in order to make this an everyday life skill rather than like an academic exercise?
Well, first, thanks for the endorsement. I can give you the $20 after the session.
Yes, thank you.
And I think it's a great question. You know, it's often in negotiation research, it focuses on these big, broad field contexts like war, and which are fantastic contexts, or these very constrained laboratory settings where everything is perfectly aligned. And this is where a lot of the AI research is currently. But in daily life, I can't tell if you react as I didn't expect in a negotiation. That's not in my planning document. That wasn't in the role materials. What do I do with that? And I think that's where the team that we have pulled together is really, really useful. Because I have that academic background. The professor in communication has also led these professional societies. The communication world and the business school world are very different. We do have some overlap. We all know Sabinius, for example, but we have really different ways of understanding that world and what that communication and persuasion is. And in engineering and in library, they reach bigger, different kinds of audiences. I lead a lot of workshops with engineering students, and I love it because I can explain it in a logical way. That's exactly, I think, what means something to them that makes it seem more real than psychology and these kinds of abstract concepts can. So I think together, we really have a lot of way to go to get to that prosperity widely shared. I mean it when I say that. But we have the foundation, and pulling these people together who typically really don't interact that often in these worlds, I've gotten really passionate. I told you I cared. I think is a really cool opportunity for us.
Rem, go ahead.
Miriam, aquaculture has, as great of an idea as it is, it's kind of politically charged, right, in the communities. I'm just wondering for seaweed, do you have the same kind of community concerns? And I assume you're working with communities. I know you're growing them in a lab, but is there any kind of barrier to scaling up?
Yes, so we have reached out to some of the commercial seaweed growers in the state of Oregon. Oregon Seaweed is one of the companies. And so they are actually growing the seaweed in containers off the coast, still using seawater. And as far as I know, they haven't faced those types of concerns that you mentioned. But of course, we will be open to knowing that this could come up at some point for sure. Yes. The second option is Jeff Brown is working on actually using shipping containers and to set them up in a way that you can do the culture of seaweed within the shipping containers. So it's a way to recycle those containers. So that can be placed in a community garden. You could, set it up and do an automated growth of the seaweed using, the sun, right? The same way as it would be in the sea as well. Does it answer your question? Oh,
all right. Hussam and then Rich.
So, my question is about the Atlas of the Pacific Northwest. So, growing up, I loved atlases. Like, I organized all sorts of information into maps. Now, creating an atlas, it seems to me, is as much a political project as much as it is a reflection of what is out there. Because now, people who look up the atlas will say, "Oh, this is how the world is." In reality, this is how you're presenting it to them. So, how do you, in, let's say, this day and age, as they say, how do you propose navigating those political waters in the formation, the creation, the presentation of the atlas?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So one is I have a lot of experience navigating how maps are used politically and how they're presented to the public. Like, I'm on the board of the North American Cartographic Information Society, the academic director of the AAG's cartography group. I'm the editor of Cartographic Perspectives, yada, 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 right? But so like I've done this a lot. But the other is more that I actually really believe that all maps are arguments. They're claims upon reality. They don't actually represent reality. They tell you a story about what the author and the reader wants. And so for me, putting this atlas together is about getting as many voices as we can together to actually think about what is the Pacific Northwest, what has it been, what might it be. And that doesn't mean that even within the spectrum of the atlas, there'll be wholesale agreement. I think authors of different sections might have different views on what's important. And I think navigating that collaboratively and in a productive way is how we co-produce knowledge and also how we build the ability to communicate about and across our region. I hope that answers.
Rich,
yeah, you negotiate.
Yeah.
Miriam, thank you so much for your talk. I'm going to geek out a little bit here. So on the extraction of seaweed, is there innovation in there that you're doing, or are you just using supercritical CO2? Can you talk a little bit more about that aspect of the project?
Sure. So we have two practices. We just got started using CIWIS funding from OSU. So using those funds, we are starting to do extractions just using water-based extractions, basically. However, we have a new member from the FIC, Yunus Dat Mohammadi, is joining us to use the supercritical CO2 to do the extraction in a green way, and then we can actually scale it. He's buying the machine to do it this summer. So we're pretty excited about that. Great question.
Miriam, FIC.
The Food Innovation Center.
Yeah. We're gonna, we think we'll have time at the very end for questions. We're gonna move on to the next group.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Mojica. I am an associate professor in the College of Public Health. But I am not only a researcher or a public health professional, I'm also someone who has experienced the real-life consequences of unequal access to health care. My parents were immigrant farm workers. Like many others in our community, they worked hard and had little to no access to health. We relied on the emergency department for basic health care services until small community clinics popped up nearby. We even drove 8 hours one time overnight to the US-Mexico border so that my dad could get treatment for a toothache in Mexico. So these early experiences really shaped me. I pursued higher education and public health so that I could ensure communities like mine had access to healthcare. Although I later shifted my focus to cancer prevention and control, I have remained committed to serving medically underserved communities. In the past 10 years, my work has focused on preventing colon cancer, which is the second leading cause of cancer death in the US. I've studied individual and system-level factors that drive screening. I've partnered with local clinics to evaluate workflows and design interventions to increase knowledge and navigation support. But looking ahead, I'm eager to broaden my reach and make a more lasting impact. I am putting together a transdisciplinary team. We represent public health, engineering, medicine, and a health plan for now. Our goal is to create a digital health tool incorporating AI to support patients in colon cancer screening. Colonoscopy is the gold standard test to prevent colon cancer and catch it early. A critical part of completing the test is properly, quote unquote, cleaning out your system. Not always a pleasant experience. What makes it even more difficult is that all the preparation must happen at home. Okay? When not done properly, it can lead to canceled or incomplete colonoscopies, which increases the risk of colon cancer, drives up costs, and disrupts clinical workflows. It is estimated that 20 to 30% of colonoscopies are not completed due to inadequate bowel preparation. This issue disproportionately affects individuals from low-income backgrounds as well as Hispanic and Black communities. Offering patients a digital tool to guide them through colonoscopy preparation could make the process more accessible. It could also potentially increase overall screening rates. Right now, only 64% of U.S. age-eligible adults are screened for colon cancer, well below the national goal of 80%. And since colonoscopy is the most used screening method, improving preparation is key. Long-term, our goal is to build a strong evidence base for this tool, and if successful, adapt it to support patients, clinics, and providers across other health conditions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Niemeyer. I'm an associate professor of mechanical engineering. So just a few months ago, we all witnessed the devastating impacts of the LA County fires. Here in Oregon, we've seen similar raging wildfires that disrupt lives and livelihoods and destroy communities. Imagine the anxiety of a family watching their home, their hometown be threatened by fire, the uncertainty, the fear. Now, as many of you know, wildfires do play a natural and beneficial role in forests by clearing out dead vegetation and sparking new growth. However, our changing climate and evolving land use patterns have pushed these fires to unprecedented levels of severity, threatening not only the forests, but also our communities. Now, when a wildfire ignites, emergency managers really only have access these days to crude models for predicting fire spread in real time, limiting the ability to accurately forecast danger. In addition, rising temperatures and altered precipitation patterns are modifying landscapes and will continue to moving forward, making areas once considered safe increasingly vulnerable to severe fires. We don't actually know which communities will be at most risk in 10 to 20 years or beyond. Now, picture a future where we can harness technology and collaboration to anticipate such disasters and act ahead of time to save lives, homes, and keep our environment safe. When fires do ignite, emergency managers would be able to accurately predict the likely paths in real time and protect lives, like we do with hurricanes. And where communities and policymakers have the information to prepare and adapt years in advance. So I'm excited to share the vision behind what I'm calling the Pacific Northwest Wildfire Resilience Initiative. We will combine advanced computer modeling, real-time data collection and mapping by drones, and AI and machine learning tools with insights from experts on the ground and local communities. We can create systems that not only better predict how fires might start and spread and where, but also inform decisions that protect people and property, helping adapt with changing climate conditions. Our goal isn't simply to study wildfires from a basic scientific perspective, it's to truly help people. So the strength of this initiative will come from our partnerships. Within our university at Oregon State, I will bring together leading voices from mechanical, civil, and even nuclear engineering, robotics, forestry, social sciences, climate science, and our extension services. Externally, we will forge partnerships and connections with state and local government, community organizations, and industry partners, all of whom will share our commitment to a safer and more resilient future. So what does success look like over the next 5 to 10 years? Picture a coordinated research center for the Pacific Northwest here at Oregon State, a hub where groundbreaking ideas from across disciplines are transformed into real-world solutions that protect communities and enhance public safety. So the seed funding from this academy will ignite this journey by bringing together a core team next year in a focused workshop and facilitating travel to establish some of these key external partnerships. This is really the essential first step in creating a cohesive, forward-thinking network of relationships and research that transforms how communities live safely with fire, making our region a model of resilience and innovation. So in closing, the Pacific Northwest Wildfire Resilience Initiative will turn the escalating threat of wildfires into a catalyst for innovation and community strength. We can build a future where warnings turn into action, preparation replaces panic, and every community is better prepared, more resilient, and empowered to thrive. Thank you.
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Juyan. I'm in the Department of Food Science and Technology of College of Agriculture Sciences. So today I'm excited to share how our transdisciplinary team is advancing edible, biodegradable, and compostable packagings to tackle the urgent global issues in plastic pollution, food spoilage, and soil degradation. So conventional plastic packaging helped preserve the food, but the long term as environmental harm. So it contributes to greenhouse gas emission, pollutes our ecosystems, and offers no values after discarded. In the meantime, and the food waste and the nutrient loss are worsening the soil health and also climate impact. So we envision edible, biodegradable, and compostable packagings as a transformative solutions, one and not only protect the food, but also feed the soil and even benefit the human health when edible. So as packagings that can vanish, and also nourish after use. So our approach is deeply transdisciplinary systems. So we're bringing together experts in food science, material engineering, soil health, and public health to co-develop these two new packaging systems from agricultural waste. We are also incorporating antimicrobial coating, edible component, compostable materials. So these packaging is composted. It can go to soil and help soil health. And also when consumed, they can even deliver functional benefit like fibers and antioxidant. This work is grounded in community co-creations. So we are partnering with these rural growers and food processors and composters in rural communities, and that develop the packagings that's affordable, innovative, and functional and locally tailored. So the benefits are far-reaching to reduce the plastic use, lower the food waste, healthier soils, improve nutrition, and also economic opportunities for rural communities. So we are also training the new generations of students to lead in sustainable packaging systems. So over the next years, we are building the collaborative research network and co-developing these pilot proposals. And long-term goal is to launch scalable solutions and policies shaping research and support a circular bioeconomy, one that connects the material innovation, environmental health, and food system resilience. Thank you. We welcome collaboration to move forward this innovation. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Axel Sainz Rodriguez, assistant professor in the math department at OSU. As a kid, I got good at math in the back of a minivan on 16-hour drives to visit my grandma in Mexico. I would entertain myself by doing computations in my head. How much time till we got there? What if we went 5 miles faster? What if we took another route? How many digits of the square root of 10 can I compute? Spoiler alert, you need calculus for an efficient computation of the last one. Now, as a father, when I drive my daughters to visit their grandma, I think about the future. I think about how I can make a better world, how math can impact society. what are the generational problems that us as scientists have to solve? In particular, I think about next generation tech and energy. We're in the advent of the machine learning and AI revolution, and this task produce large amounts of heat and require large amounts of energy to cool down. Current technology is based on electricity and magnetism to store and process information. And these systems produce heat as electricity travels through the devices. Along with my collaborators from OSU and University of Oregon, Professor Oksana Stroverkova in physics, Professor Eric Corwin in physics, Professor Tim Solsov in chemistry, Professor Chong Fang in chemistry, and Professor Pallavi Dagat in engineering, we are reimagining technology based on quantum materials, where information is stored and processed using quantum properties with no classical counterpart, where we can escape the resistive heat of electricity. This is an ambitious research program that requires fundamental advances in science. The key fundamental question at this stage is, how can we control quantum systems? As I mentioned, there's no classical counterpart to these quantum systems, and often intuition fails. We're going to build a window to the quantum scale. We're going to develop the most powerful simulations for large quantum systems that leverage math theory, the high-performance computing cluster in OSU, and the upcoming supercomputer. We're going to make precise predictions for our colleagues in physics and chemistry to test in their labs. We're going to build novel quantum devices through continued collaborations with our colleagues in engineering. I'm still that kid in the back of the minivan testing theories through computations, except that I moved from calculus to quantum field theory, and now the destination is quantum, the frontier of energy-efficient tech. Thank you.
We are on schedule. We have time for questions. Jathy, yeah.
Here's a question for Kyle. Are you thinking of resilience essentially as a planning kind of exercise, or will there be real-time predictions, or what are you thinking of?
Both, really. So I think there's two main elements to this center and this plan that I'm thinking. One is improved real-time models, which again, these days we're still relying on models from the 70s, which are very empirical. So improved real-time models that can help with dealing with emergencies when they happen, but also using more predictive, expensive, large-scale simulations, both of the fire itself and where things may ignite and spread, combined with climate models for the near term to predict, okay, 20 years from now, which communities are most at risk and need investing now in order to make them more resilient. So it's a bit of both. Yeah.
Thank you.
Heidi. She's coming.
Okay, I have a rather nerdy question for Axel. I was the kid that was also sitting in the back seat learning to subtract. Make your daughters subtract 3-digit numbers just to keep them off the streets. But anyways, I have a rather nerdy question, which is I've sort of, over the last 30 years, I've observed the process of quantum lattice gauge theory improving quantum mechanical calculations, and about half of the improvements have been because you can buy a bigger computer, and the other half have been because somebody comes up with a much better algorithm. And I'd like you to comment on that. It sounds like you're actually working more on the algorithmic edge. So can you comment on where you think this is going to go? How much is going to be better algorithms? How much is going to be better computers?
Yes, I think the ace in my sleeve is going to be mathematical theory. I think my strategy is to use fundamental toy models to power the simulations and couple them together so that we can build more efficient computations and obtain exponential speedups. And this is, I've done some preliminary tests and then begun to implementing, and I've started collaborating with physicists, experimentalists to actually move this forward to a setting where we can actually have applications. Thank you.
Iram, go ahead. We have time for a few more.
Prevent anybody else from asking questions. Jae-yoon, am I saying that right? What does it take to scale up what you're doing?
Some of packagings that we're working on now is to now the stage is under the pilot scale. So using this pilot scale molding machine, we in the Department of Food Science, and so we are actually testing the lab scale, the pulp that we made, and create this pilot scale pulp and the containers. So the scaling up is the biggest challenges, because it's different from the lab scales to the pilot scale and the commercial scales. So we're working with these engineering crews and the Department College of Engineering. So we got a lot of help transitions from the lab scale to pilot scale now, and some of the products is actually producing the pilot scale. So we're expecting that this happen commercially in the near future. So.
Whoever has the microphone, I think. Yeah, Andy.
This question is probably more, again, for Kyle and Jay Yoon. And I think it's a question around moral hazard, but I'm not entirely sure. For Kyle, you know that in the state of California, they recently tried to pass a rule which would have required insurers to actually insure houses which were considered in high fire zones. But in California insurers, the insurance companies basically said, we don't like that rule. We're going to pull out of the market if you make us do that. And so basically they had to stop that rulemaking. And for Jay Yoon, there's been a lot of debate about biodegradable packaging in general. And one of the biggest problems is soil health and what happens to micro and nanoparticles once they have to get into the soil and now become part of the food system. And so we've created an interesting problem in which we think we're solving something simple for folks, but now you've created this gigantic other issue. So I wonder whether or not you have the right set of constituents in your transdisciplinary plan, and whether or not it actually really needs to almost have a conversation that begins at the very beginning of the regulatory and the social framework that is involved in actually being able to really make fundamental changes in the way we think about moral hazard for insuring soil health, in order to actually even be able to start thinking about implementing new solutions and go into these really complex systems.
Sure. Thanks, Andy, for the easy question. No, and so it's actually funny. I've been at conferences where talking about fire modeling, and the insurance companies are there because they have very active research teams that do this for the reason you mentioned. So I mean, the other things that have happened in California, I just saw like today, Berkeley is making rules requiring making things more robust against fire because they know the threat is increasing. And so I think, yes, you give maybe insurance companies more tools to pull out of states or something if you all of a sudden add a policy. But I think, there's the stick of the regulatory requirements, but there's also a carrot, which is you can help communities prepare. Like we know how to do things to make neighborhoods and communities safer. You've seen, I actually almost used an image of like the Lahaina house, the miracle house that didn't get hit by the fires in Maui. And that was because it had recently been upgraded to be more resilient against fire. And there are other examples from the LA fires where that's happened. So we actually know in some ways how to do this. It's just a matter of where do states and communities put the investments. So I think that has to be part of it. It has to involve the government and communities to help provide resources to do this, in addition to just giving more information about or adding requirements to do so.
Okay. So we stick to the regulations more to the compostability. The compostability definition is more clear, and within these certain conditions now, our packaging is actually completely degraded, biodegradable. But so we don't use a bioplastic or other type of bioplastics, and they can create the microplastic and nanoplastics. So our packaging is more like to cellulose-based packaging, paper-based packaging. So we really stick to that, as I mentioned, that is regulations follow compostability that can be completely gone and after the degradations under the certain conditions. So.
All right. Yes, we're going to give them a round of applause. Thank you. We are well past the halfway mark. Just to let you know, there might be some people coming in as we go through the next couple of groups here. But with that, I'm going to move it on. Falanle.
Hello, my name is Bolanle Daunsi. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Business. Recently, I had surgery and I couldn't lift more than 3 pounds. I had this whole elaborate idea for how I was going to make things easier for me to get to class and to teach my classes, since I teach digital design classes. I was going to move all of my stuff to the internet and have them in box. But then my dad came home and he brought me a backpack. It had wheels and it had a handle for me to pull it around. It was a really simple solution that I hadn't thought of because I didn't know this product existed. So this made my life so much easier during that time of disability. Mine was really short, but for 1 out of every 7 people in the US, a disability is a lifetime illness. And they have to do things like get dressed for work, go out, have commitments, social commitments. For them, getting up in the morning is not just about dressing and saying, does this look good or is this appropriate? It's more about, can I get out of this to use the restroom? How long will it take me? Can I sit down all day in my wheelchair and feel comfortable? Will this go over my leg braces? Those are the kind of things they are thinking of when they're dressing up in the morning. So that's what my research is hoping to do. One of my research participants recently gave me a very good illustration. She said for her, waking up in the morning is about thinking of her energy levels as a jar of marbles. Some days it's full, but some days it's half empty, and some days it's just a quarter of the jar. And she has to allocate all of those marbles to everything she has to do throughout the day. So how can we, as a group of researchers, make it so that she uses the least amount of marbles to get through the day? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring together a group of people who are stakeholders. Most importantly, the people who have disabilities who need these solutions, since they understand the problems fully. We're also trying to bring together apparel designers and merchandisers, because they know how easy it will be to implement these solutions and how cost-effective it will be. So Jenny doesn't have to pay 2 to 3 times more for clothing because it's described as adaptive. So finally, we want to be able to bring in researchers who have experience in design to find effective solutions to these problems. We would also like to have students involved, such as the Design for Social Impact program here on campus, and build the next generation of designers that are thinking of design not just as aesthetic, but as human-centered and what's important for the consumer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Molly Carney, and I'm in the College of Liberal Arts. But I'd like to return back to the question and the conversation of wildfire, because wildfires are Western North America's most immediate existential crisis, posing significant economic, environmental, and even health-related problems. But these devastating fires, they're a product of a century of fire suppression policies, which today exacerbate the impacts of our current climate crisis. However, we know from the records of early explorers that indigenous Kalapuyan-speaking communities of the Willamette Valley used low-intensity fires to manage large landscapes and really even encourage fire-adapted plant communities. So you can see in the foreground of this image from 1848, we can see the iconic oak savannas that our region is known for, and this is a landscape that's intentionally kept open and clear through these practices. With Euro-American expansion and colonization, though, these practices were terminated, and it's estimated that only about 1% of our region's native habitats remain. And current climate projections for the Pacific Northwest estimate that we're looking at longer periods of warmer and drier weather with extended fire seasons, which means more frequent and widespread fires in our futures. So while researchers and agencies recognize the necessity of incorporating prescribed fires or controlled fires into our management plans, we don't have the adequate baselines to really think about these restoration practices and make these management decisions. So this project really aims to leverage both modern and long-term interdisciplinary data to understand precisely how Indigenous peoples use low-intensity fires to manage landscapes, looking across the last 16,000 years. So just to start off, I'd really like to begin to continue establishing and building long-term relationships throughout this region. So I'm an archaeologist, I'm also an ethnobiologist, and I've had the privilege to work closely with several tribal communities throughout our region, particularly with cultural and natural resources departments. And so through these relationships and hopefully additional workshops where we're able to support our project partners, it's my goal to really reorient the standard research power dynamics where academics initiate and lead large-scale projects to instead prioritize the goals and needs of my collaborators, those Indigenous and tribal, as well as local practitioners too. Because many Indigenous and local communities, they've been doing the work of restoring fire to the landscape throughout our valley, so we can get back to this picture that we see on the screen. And it's a little bit bigger than that too, because in conversations with my colleagues, all have noted that reinstating these low-intensity fires throughout the valley would really support long-term tribal food sovereignty goals as well as their climate justice goals. But to achieve fire-adapted and climate change-resilient landscapes, we're going to need many more partners. We'll need to work with contemporary prescribed fire practitioners. We'll need to work with folks working in forestry, wildlife, soils. We'll need to work with folks at the county level, nonprofits, and even our very own fire extension program, possibly also through our new Resilience Center, too, that we heard about earlier. So, of course, though, as a team grows, goals will change. But I think that by supporting and even reigniting traditional fire management practices, we can transform our approach to wildfires. We can create landscapes that are not only resilient to climate change, but are also rich in biodiversity and cultural heritage. Why not come up with solutions that we can learn from where we have 16,000 years of human trial and error? So together, I urge us to embrace the power of good fire for the future. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Natalia Shulzhenko. I'm from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Oregon State University. And maybe not surprisingly, I will be talking about dogs. Although I'm not a veterinarian, I am a biomedical researcher and MD, PhD by education. Did you know that in this country there are about 50 to 60 million dogs living with their families mostly? This was the case of our family too. We had a dog called Jackie who was really sweet and playful until in 2022 she was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer called hemangiosarcoma. What we've learned is that we didn't have many choices to treat Jackie because most of the treatments were quite painful and would only briefly extend her lifespan. So we decided not to do anything, just wait. And sadly, this is a situation for many, many families because cancer is the leading cause of death in dogs. In humans, cancer is the top second cause of death, but recent research in anti-cancer therapies, specifically developing immunotherapies, to combat cancer have shown really promising results and extended the lifespan of people with cancer. These therapies work by recharging, reboosting the immune system that can become better in combating cancer. And now we are also just began scratching the surface about the role of the gut microbiota in this process. So in the gut, we have trillions of small organisms called microbes. So collectively, they're called gut microbiota. And they're in constant communication with our immune system, and they constantly can stimulate it and change the type of immune responses we are having. So we can harness the gut microbiota to help in combating cancer, to also to help with the recharging immune system. And we've seen the quite remarkable results in human studies when people who were resistant to certain type of therapies by using the gut microbiota modifying therapies became responsive to those therapies. So we at OSU have a unique opportunity to bring this, to close the gap between the human oncology and veterinary oncology by adapting the knowledge generated in human anti-cancer clinical trials for the canine patients. Our group involves experts in immunology, experts in microbiology, data sciences, and leading veterinarians from across the country. Also involves nonprofit organizations such as Canine Cancer Alliance and companies like Animal Biome. Finally, this project can not only help dogs, but also in the long run can have a translating back to humans, thus mutually benefiting our best friends and ourselves. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Gorman, Associate Professor in Public Health from the College of Health. Ringing the bell is a tradition at many cancer centers for celebrating important milestones like completing treatment. Imagine this feeling, maybe hope, joy, gratitude. You might hear cheers all around you, hug your friends and family. You are a cancer survivor, but this looks different for everyone. This is vastly different if you're diagnosed in your 30s versus your 70s, if you have lots of support, or if you live alone. What if you live 4 hours from the nearest cancer center? What our team is working toward is finding ways to help every cancer survivor, no matter who they are or where they live, have equal opportunity to feel supported and cared for during cancer. To really understand why that's important, let's go back to the bell. Now you've left the hospital, and after traveling for hours to get back home, you begin to wonder, why don't I feel relieved? Instead, you feel fear creeping in. Fear that the cancer will come back, fear of being alone, left to figure things out by yourself now that the treatment is over, fear that things in your life will never get back to normal. And the reality is that there is no normal after cancer. Over the years, I've heard numerous survivorship stories, including the fears. Is this cancer coming back, or is this just a cold? How am I going to pay for that? Wait, what? I might not be able to have children anymore? Yes, it is amazing and wonderful that we have cancer treatments that save more lives. But finishing treatment is not where the work ends. For cancer survivors and their loved ones, managing the collateral damage of cancer is a lifelong task. If we do nothing to support them, the impacts range from higher levels of stress to worsening health and increased mortality rates. Our team has made great progress toward developing and testing programs to help cancer survivors and their loved ones manage the challenges that they face. Statistically, about 40% of us will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in our lives, and most of us will be in a position to support someone who's been diagnosed with cancer if we haven't already. We want to shine a light on cancer and cancer survivorship as important health issues where increasing access to supportive services is critical. Oregon State is uniquely positioned with capacity to reach Oregonians in every county. We want to further strengthen those ties and OSU's capacity to address cancer-related needs. Our team of researchers, healthcare providers, advocates, and extension partners plans to collaborate with communities across Oregon, especially those in underserved areas, to better understand their priorities and barriers to accessing needed services and support. We will focus on communities with the highest cancer burden to put strategies into place that can help fill these gaps with the long-term goal of improving cancer health outcomes across the state. Thank you.
All right, we have time for a few questions. Heidi, microphone coming.
Yeah, I have a question for Bolanle. So you have, there's a very wide range of disabilities, and I'm just wondering, in your project, are you going to start out by concentrating on a small subset, people, serving people from a small subset, or are you going to try to operate more broadly?
Okay, thank you. So right now we're focusing just on people with physical disabilities. And even just by doing interviews, we found out that the range of disabilities within that, just that small subspace is really wide. So our idea is to try to help keep our focus on small buckets at a time and then keep expanding. That's the whole idea of having it go over multiple years.
All right, somebody else, Tom.
Yeah, my question's for Jessica. You all gave lovely presentations, and I enjoyed listening to all of them. But to Jessica specifically, I love the vision that you have of ensuring that there is more uniform access to support for cancer survivors. And understandably, one of the initial goals needs to be to determine what the barriers are, so that you can overcome those barriers. But do you have a sense of maybe what those barriers are today, at least maybe a couple of them, and what the world looks like with a solution in place to overcome those barriers, assuming that they do end up manifesting through your work?
So I do have some sense that in rural and remote areas of Oregon, there is limited access to care in general, right? We know that that's a barrier. So we can even think about transportation to appointments. The services that are available that would be sort of out there in those communities to help people would be limited. So a lot of my research ends up being through like Zoom or online ways where we can reach people who, no matter where they are. So that's kind of one piece of what I envision for the future. But I think there's lots of opportunities to potentially leverage some resources that are already out there, build on strengths. I think another idea is working with Extension. We haven't historically thought about the work that they do in family and community health as cancer prevention, but they do cancer prevention work. So starting to highlight the cancer prevention, cancer screening, and cancer support care that we can do would be, I guess, my ideal world of bringing that all together and bringing that to more communities across Oregon.
Thanks. Katie, is that you? Yeah.
That's me. Thank you. My question's for Molly. Great talk, and actually being from the College of Forestry, hearing about the wide interest in forests across the university is great. And so I guess one of the things about that painting you showed, we were in a very different, sorry, this is going dead, I think. But anyway, it's working fine, okay. We were in a very different climate regime when that painting was taken, and in a very different context of level of human settlement and type of human settlements. So how does that figure into going forward?
Thanks. Yeah, I would love to do higher resolution climate reconstructions for our whole region and then compare that with the archaeological materials for our region to think about those human decision processes across changing climates throughout the entire Holocene. So looking at those warmer and drier periods, looking at colder and wetter periods too, to see what did people do that worked, what didn't work, and can we learn from that going forward?
Great. One more. I think, Martin, you have the...
Yep. Good. Okay. Thank you. Another question for Molly and a cheap pitch. Corvallis Kaleidoscope, the public celebration of publicly funded research as NSF STEM Day happens here on May 10th at Prax. So if you are interested in supporting that, come to this event. And part of that is a half-day discussion between indigenous knowledge holders and Western science. And I'd like to invite you, because the World Forestry Center will be present and they work very strongly on it. And just my question to you is, what are your external partners that you're bringing in from this area? Because I know there's a lot of work going on.
Cool, that sounds awesome.
You're invited.
Thanks. I've been working with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde for a few years now, so I'm working pretty closely with them, as well as Warm Springs, and continuing to try to make connections more locally. I've had a meeting yesterday with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I have a committee meeting tomorrow on forestry, horticulture, the Rivers to Ridges Partnership in Lane County, who've been engaging in fire, as well as the Traditional Ecological Inquiry Program with the Long Tom Watershed or other folks that I've been working with. So hopefully to meet more.
Thank you all. All right, our next group is coming up.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's getting a little bit warm here, all this brain power. So I would like to start my presentation with a little exercise. Yes, please imagine that you are back home. You're starting to feel thirsty. What do? You walk to your kitchen, you open the faucet, and you just take a very refreshing glass of water. Have you ever considered how healthy is that water? Have you ever considered the quality of that water? Are you taking for granted that we live in a modern society and everything should be fine just because they told us so? I would like to start by inviting you to drink that water and reflect about how would you like that water to be in the future for you, for your children, for the new generations. We are moving into a change. We have an ongoing crisis, and we are living ourselves the change of that. And one of those changes is less water available for each of us, where we really need to rely into water reuse technologies. Water reuse is not only our capacity to treat the water and serve it to a different population or for different purpose. We also need to be able to assess the quality of that water. And how do we assess water? When we drink that water, we want to imagine that this water is coming from here, a pristine environment far away from the cities, never touched by any chemical contaminant, ideally, but this is rare. And on top of that, we need to acknowledge that 25% of our global population lives without any kind of management in their water sources. They don't have access to clean, safe drinking water. But again, how do we assess water quality? My laboratory, in collaboration with scientists across campus, other institutions, including University of Idaho and also HSU, are developing new technologies to not only improve our capacity to treat water, but also to make this treatment more efficient and cheaper, to make it more feasible to be implemented in different populations and different communities. And at the same time, we would like to be able to step back and look into with more perspective about our concept of quality and how this is also linked with quantity. In this case, we may not know, based on the amount of chemical contaminants that we are able to assess, that will be represented by this red spot in our current monitoring strategies for drinking water, in even the modern societies, in the most modern cities. We represent this red dot with maybe 100 chemical contaminants that are assessed, but the black area represents the dark matter of all the chemical contaminants that we are not assessing. So I invite you to think about this, and I also invite you to think, how can we keep expanding these water treatment capacities and our capacity to monitor? And that is where my lab wants to contribute the most, to be able to better monitor and also to better prioritize the chemical contaminants that we want to assess. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Pam Sullivan. I'm a hydrogeologist, and I love water. Consider the last time you sat by a river, perhaps in the mountains, like this picture. You hear the rush of water, you close your eyes, you breathe in, you relax. You're thankful for that river, but maybe in more ways than you might imagine. That water moving down the stream, it will be treated and sent to your homes to nourish you and your family. What might surprise you about that water is that most of it came from underground at some point. What might also surprise you about that water is that the chemicals in it are changing. Now, at certain times of year, the treatment of that water is leading to the formation of carcinogens that are being transported to your home. It isn't just happening in urban, suburban, and agricultural areas. It's even occurring in the relatively untouched wild spaces where much of our water is generated. Unfortunately, we still cannot predict how stream water quality will change over time. And thus, we cannot help treatment centers make timely decisions. To achieve this goal and to move towards a greater global water security, my team can use Oregon State's new cutting-edge, high-performance computing facilities to address three fundamental advances. The first is we need to be able to see the water below the ground. And recent advances in airborne geophysical data help us to do this. They provide us with data hundreds of feet below the ground over thousands of miles. But unfortunately, these data are not easy to access, and most people are not trained to use them. So my team aims to create the necessary cyber infrastructure and associated tools to overcome this challenge so we can help our communities see the water beneath our feet. Our second need is AI tools capable of unifying globally siloed water quality data. Together with deep learning algorithms, my team can co-produce smart water AI tools that enable communities to solve problems efficiently and to predict water quality under varying conditions. Last, for smart water AI tools to be effective for decision making, they must be co-produced in partnership with the end user. My team has extensive experience with enabling stakeholder-centered approaches, and we seek to develop flexible toolkits and support systems that enable collaborative governance at local and regional scales where decisions are made. Through these efforts, my team aims to build the Virtual Institute for Earth's Water at Oregon State. Our vision is to use predictive insights to develop sustainable water solutions for a changing world.
All right, hey everybody. I'm very excited today to talk to you about my broccoli. Okay, so notice a few reactions there, and whether you noticed it or not, there was a electrical signal that was produced by your brain when I said the word broccoli called the N400. It's called that because if we were to graph it on a graph, it would go negative for N, and then it would be about 400 milliseconds after I said something that you didn't expect me to say. And that N400 is actually a lot larger when someone's like anxious, for example. This is psychophysiology in action. And I am here today as a psychophysiologist to tell you why we need a psychophysiology center at OSU. So psychophysiology is widely used already for various things like diagnosing sleep disorders or tracking your general fitness. And all that, well, heck, there's actually a lot of psychophysiology sensors in my watch right now on my wrist. And all that's possible from decades of intensive training and research using really expensive and complicated equipment. And more recently, that those paradigms actually became a little more accessible and a lot less expensive. But when I say accessible, you could tell that to a colleague of mine that recently came to me for help because they had just collected data from 20 patients that were really hard to find and schedule, and had paid them, and was coming to me just for me to tell them when I looked at their data that none of it was usable because there was a hidden switch in the back of the device that actually made it all unusable and not savable after the fact. And it's not just academics that are having a problem with this right now. As industry and government has rushed in, there's been even more consequential issues. So you know those pulse ox measures that kind of tell you like how well you're breathing? Well, it turns out that they don't actually work as well for black and brown people because the tech was calibrated on people with less myelinated skin. Or if you've ever been watching like a crime show and someone failed a lie detector test and you're like, oh, well, they're definitely guilty. Well, it turns out that's more likely to happen for people of color because lie detectors use a psychophysiology measure called skin conductance that actually doesn't work as well for certain demographics. But, you can forget about like all of that old tech, right? Because the future is really just all about AI, right? But AI needs like the proper inputs for it to work. Okay, you can get the text and images when we ask it to help us draft an email to our boss or make my dog look like a superhero from the picture. But it actually, to be able to do individualized treatments, it's going to need something like a biological signal that's representative and collected accurately. And that's going to come from psychophysiology. So in addition to addressing inequalities in psychophysiology, our lab has been working with domain experts to do things like better diagnose recovery after concussion, to understand the neuromechanisms of addiction. And we're even working with industry right now to make apps better by incorporating psychophysiological signals to try to keep people happier and healthier. So, just you remember that brainwave, the brainwave measure I talked about earlier? That can actually now be measured by a tiny little sensor that's hidden in your hair in the back of your head. And that might sound a little scary, like something from Black Mirror to you, but you should know that it's not science fiction, and the tech is here to stay whether we like it or not. And so we have control over who actually develops it and how it's done. So let's do it damn right by making sure that we have a world-leading center here at OSU to do psychophysiology equitably and rigorously. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alicia Morales-Mortimer in biochemistry and biophysics. We have a rapidly aging population with more people alive today over the age of 60 than ever in human history. And we expect these numbers to double by 2050. This is a major concern because aging is the #1 risk factor for the development of many diseases, such as Alzheimer's, cancer, and stroke. We've identified a number of disease genes, and we find that a single gene can have multiple mutations that cause different, seemingly unrelated diseases. An example of this is lamin A. This gene has over 400 mutations that cause 19 diseases that affect specific tissues, such as the heart, or the neurons, or the muscle. To understand how multiple mutations in a single gene give rise to different diseases, I have utilized the power of the fruit fly Drosophila melanogaster, which is surprisingly a lot like us. About 75% of all human disease genes have an equivalent in the fly, and we have genetically engineered in patient mutations in the fly lamin A gene. And we can express these in specific tissues and ask, why does a mutation cause a disease in one tissue but not another? Now, we are learning a lot from the fly, but our observations may not fully represent what's happening in a human patient. So, to address this, I have teamed up with Benatta Jador, who I met through the Research Advancement Academy, to develop a system in which we can apply our findings in flies to a more relevant human model. Dr. Jador has developed a platform in which she can 3D print simplified human heart and heart neuron combinations that we call organoids. And we are going to genetically engineer in those same patient mutations that we have been studying in flies. This is going to be a major technological advancement. We will be among the first to genetically engineer in specific mutations in these organoid systems. Furthermore, this is going to propel the field forward in how we study human diseases. As this project goes, we anticipate including new collaborators in areas such as structural biology, computational modeling, and bioinformatics. As these diseases have no known cure and therapeutic options are limited, our long-term goal is to develop these organoids as a screening platform for drugs that can be used to treat these diseases. And this will be done in collaboration with industry partners. We will also build relationships with patient advocacy groups and physicians to identify what are the mutations in these patients and how their symptoms are impacted and which symptoms most impact their daily lives. And then we will tailor our organoid platform to screen for drugs to treat these symptoms. Finally, our ultimate goal is to establish a collaborative hub to study complex human diseases using these organoid systems here at OSU. Thank you.
We made it. They're really great. So we do have some time for questions. I'll start with Irem.
Pam and
We'll get you next.
Hello. Hello.
Pam and Manuel, I'm just curious about your thoughts on how your two efforts interface. I heard water treatment, sensors, and water treatment causes problems. Discuss.
I think that there's a lot of opportunity for growth at Oregon State in the field of water in general. And I think one of the beautiful things I think that came out of putting these two talks together is to show both the strength in our ability to use data sets that are available to do predictions and how we can then target the development of new infrastructure in terms of instruments to be able to collect more data to inform our management.
Yeah, absolutely agree. My laboratory is especially interested in monitoring contaminants and prioritizing contaminants, assessing the impact of the contaminant mixtures in the different human populations using the real data, specifically from children. I'm very interested in children's neurodevelopment. And I believe that our work related to groundwater and my data with data related to surface water, drinking water, could be combined together and integrated. And yeah, I see a lot of potential. So I hope that we expand the discussion later. Thank you.
Anyone else? Rich.
Testing. Wow. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Alicia.
Alicia, thank you so much for your talk. I wanted to ask a little bit more about, you were talking about developing drugs for this. What is your pathway to doing that? Are you going to screen known libraries? Do you have clinical leads? Can you guide us a little bit there?
Yeah, so actually, we are already screening drug compounds using our FLY model system. And we're using FDA-approved libraries of drugs because those have already been proved to be effective and safe in people, and we may be able to find like these off-target, like off-label uses for those. So that's always a good place to start. But with industry partners, they're going to want to test their own things, right? And we also have this lovely, natural products center here on campus as well. That with the organoids, hopefully we can do like high throughput screening of different compounds.
Any other questions? Tom? Here he comes. Oh, okay.
Thanks. Another great set of presentations to all of you. I just have a quick note for Alicia. Fascinating idea, and you may find that there's a lot of synergy with the rich body of exposure science that happens here at OSU, where complex diseases may be genotyped by exposure type, and that could be a transformative way to advance discovery of G by E interactions and the diseases that emerge. And you've probably thought of that, I'm sure. But my question's for Daniel. Clearly you're very passionate about the arrival of this transformative technology and that it be done right. And you make a very compelling case for why that needs to happen, especially as we're moving into an AI-driven future where the input data will determine a lot of bias, accuracy, et cetera. Could you elaborate a little bit on what you imagine the right way to do this is? Like, what is this center going to generate? What does that technology look like? And how are we sure that it's the right kind of technology and not this maybe more corrupted kind of technology that is currently on the market today?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. There's kind of two things to consider. There's sort of the rigor of like how we do things in terms of what we think about normally when we think about in kind of a basic science validity sort of way, where are you actually measuring what you think you're measuring and how do the signals come out and things like that. And that's going to come with just a lot of expertise. I mean, we have this thing where, so I'm someone who's like really against like this idea of, forget the colloquial word for it, but you're trying to keep other people out of a certain science and things like this, and this elitism with expertise and stuff. But we have a little bit of an issue because we've made some of this stuff so accessible and cheap that everyone's trying to use it, and they end up sometimes not even realizing that it's not working correctly. And you actually, that could be all the way to a published paper, and so you have some results that aren't real. So expertise in terms of people that are able to have the experience working with people that are more of the domain experts for how this stuff's trying to be applied. And so that's not happening enough. So I consider myself a psychophysiologist. I'm actually a clinical psychologist as well. But if I were going to go and try to do something in like a social psychology thing and try to use, I'm really good at the psychophysiology part, but I might not understand some things. And so some of that communication and talking is really important. But the other part of it is the kind of the equity piece, and ensuring that when we start to improve and develop these technologies, that we're actually using as the test for this is a lot of different types of people essentially, and we actually have some power with the amplifier companies. I say amplifier like the psychophys equipment technology companies, because even though a lot of people are starting to buy these a lot and things like that, it's still growing, and it's still like sort of early enough to where that technology can be shaped more if we complain as consumers and say we need this heart rate measure to actually work more for be more generalizable essentially to the whole population. And so I think having the sort of affective individuals that are the in application of this together with the more kind of basic science people is what's important for shaping it.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to invite all the fellows to come back up. Manuel, don't stay up here. We have just a few minutes if there's any burning questions for any fellow, but I also just like to see them all together because I don't get to do that very often. I do want to just do a couple wrap-ups. We heard solutions for cancer prevention, survival, detection, treatment. We heard solutions for persons living with disabilities, for energy-hungry AI, health of and access to water and water security, technologies to facilitate research into disease, infectious disease and resilient cities, human behavior and AI, and then a theme I heard was technology that is scary in the wrong hands, and us saying we're the right hands. So what I want to say is these are the right hands. OSU has the talent and the leadership to move forward in a lot of these solution areas, and I want to give them all a big round of applause, and then we have a few minutes before the reception starts if there's any burning questions. Rich, she's coming.
This question's for everybody. What was the biggest surprise you got from this experience so far, and what you've learned from going through this process?
Are you a plant?
No, I am not. I was way too curious.
Yeah, I recently moved to OSU last fall from the University of Texas at El Paso. And the biggest, I feel really blessed. I was never taught how to write a grant. It was more blindfold. So really, and I've had a lot of success doing that, but just the groundwork that went into theory of change, logic model, I didn't know how to do all that. And just doing those art and craft workshops as to get from point A, start to finish, it was a huge, humbling learning experience for me. That's my 2 cents.
And I'll add to that, I met people from colleges I would have never met otherwise. I mean, I would never have met Benata if it hadn't been for this. So I think that was a really useful part of it. And we also learned about a lot of resources across campus. I'm also fairly new to OSU as well, and so that was a really bonus to being a part of this program.
Anybody else dying? Okay.
Yes, I'm also new at OSU. I started last year, and I felt that coming here from Cascades every other week, I felt extremely welcome. This is something very special about OSU. I think there was a lot of collaboration spirit here. And so I wanted to say thank you to everyone for welcoming me as part of the RAA, for Judy and Pooja for organizing the Fridays together. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Iram, go ahead. Yeah.
I heard a lot of collaboration ideas that you were all thinking about. What I didn't hear is the collaboration opportunities among each other. I'm just wondering, is that conversation happening like in the background? Are you already identifying? So I thought, Manuel and Pam, I already called out. Laura and Molly, I thought that would be an interesting type of, and then Molly and Kyle, because there's like very different ways of approaching the problem. I'm just wondering quickly, just one example.
Yeah, I wonder if everyone who has a seed of collaboration coming out of this within the you all have new collaborations, I know, because I collect the data outside. But a seed of collaboration within this, if anybody has, anybody can just raise their hand who has a little bit of that going. Get us started. Cool. All right. All right. So that's not a part of the design, but it is a really nice side effect of this. And the biggest example, I think, right now is Alicia and Banana working together, moving from fruit flies to printed human-like tissues. Yeah, and organelles. All right. All right. Perfect timing. Thank you, everyone. This was a long time, and it got actually pretty warm in here. I appreciate everyone's endurance in this. It is a rare opportunity to get these nice, accessible snippets of what our colleagues are doing, and I always really enjoy it. I'm going to ask the fellows to stay up here because I would actually like to get a photo of you. But otherwise, the reception is open.
Julie?
Yes?
Thank you so much for your guidance through all this program.
Thank you. All right. The reception is open. It's hosted. Enjoy yourselves. The fellows will be here to answer any more of your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll stay in the back. Tell the people.
We always do.
So we can see you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Nice to. I have a question for you, actually. I'm happy to answer.
It's like if you want us, turn sideways.
Yeah. That's literally my job. You gotta get here too.
Come
Yeah,
here.
come on.
Come here. Come here.
Okay.